A German shepherd's bark reveals ancient secrets in an airport suitcase. TSA agent Maya uncovers her family's hidden past, forgotten treasures, and her true calling. Subscribe now and comment your location. What happens when history comes knocking? The autumn sun streamed through the massive windows of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Maya Rodriguez, a security agent with 3 years of experience and a lifetime of unfulfilled dreams, adjusted her TSA uniform and tucked a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. At 32, she still carried herself with the posture of someone who hadn't quite found her place in the world, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes watchful, always observing more than participating. "Handler Thompson, please proceed to Checkpoint Charlie." The announcement echoed through the terminal. Maya glanced at her watch. Another Tuesday afternoon, another shift of scanning bags and calming irritated travelers. As she monitored the X-ray screen, her mind drifted to the archaeology textbooks gathering dust in her apartment, reminders of the degree she'd abandoned when her father's medical bills had demanded more practical career choices. The German shepherd arrived with Officer Thompson before Maya could sink deeper into regret. Rex was the pride of the K-9 unit, a muscular, tan, and black animal with intelligent eyes and an impeccable record for detecting contraband. "Afternoon, Maya," Thompson nodded. "Just doing a routine sweep." "All quiet here," Maya replied, returning her attention to the screen. That's when she noticed the elderly woman in line, petite with silver hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing a navy blazer despite the Georgia heat. Something about her seemed out of place, though Maya couldn't quite place what. The woman's weathered hands clutched the handle of a vintage leather suitcase, her knuckles white with tension. Rex, working his way down the line, suddenly froze. His ears perked forward, and without warning, he lunged toward the elderly woman's suitcase, barking with an intensity that made nearby passengers jump back in alarm. "Ma'am, please step aside," Thompson commanded, his hand moving instinctively to his holster. The woman's pale blue eyes widened. "There must be some mistake," she said, her voice steady despite the commotion. "I'm Dr. Eleanor Blackwood, Professor Emeritus at Emory University." Maya stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need to inspect your luggage." "This is absurd," Dr. Blackwood protested, though she made no move to prevent them from taking her suitcase. "I'm simply traveling to Paris for an exhibition." As Thompson placed the suitcase on the inspection table, curious travelers gathered at a distance, phones raised to capture the unfolding drama. Maya unzipped the case, and what she saw inside made her breath catch. Nestled in velvet cloth lay an assortment of glittering jewelry, yellowed documents in protective sleeves, and at the center, a small bronze statue of a soldier on horseback, its patina suggesting centuries rather than decades. "My God," Thompson whispered. Dr. Blackwood sighed. "I suppose I should have declared these items properly." Maya looked up, meeting the professor's gaze. "What exactly are we looking at here, Dr. Blackwood?" "History, young lady," the professor replied with unexpected warmth. "American history that belongs in a museum, not gathering dust in private collections." In that moment, as Rex continued to bark and onlookers whispered theories to each other, Maya felt something shift inside her, like the first rumble before an avalanche. She couldn't possibly know that this peculiar Tuesday would mark the beginning of the most extraordinary 6 months of her life. "We'll need to verify these items," Maya said, slipping on white cotton gloves from the inspection kit. Her heart raced as she gently lifted a tarnished silver locket with intricate engravings. Dr. Blackwood stepped closer. "That belonged to Elizabeth Whitmore, wife of a Confederate captain. She wore it until the day Sherman's troops marched through Georgia." Her voice carried the reverence of someone who spoke of old friends rather than historical figures. Security Supervisor Richard Daniels pushed through the gathering crowd, his weathered face hardening at the scene. "What's the situation here?" "Undeclared historical artifacts, sir," Maya explained. Dr. Blackwood was attempting to transport them to Paris. "I wasn't attempting anything nefarious," Dr. Blackwood interjected, straightening her posture despite her evident arthritis. "These items are all properly documented. I simply didn't realize I needed special customs forms for a temporary exhibition loan." Daniels glanced at the open suitcase, then at the crowd filming with their phones. "Take this to the secure room. Now, Among the onlookers, a tall man with a press badge hanging from his neck watched intently. "Excuse me," he called out, approaching the security team. "Jackson Parker, WSB-TV. Care to comment on what's happening here?" "No comment," Daniels barked, placing himself between the reporter and Maya. 3 hours later, in the sterile environment of the airport's security office, Maya cataloged each item while Dr. Blackwood provided explanations. The room smelled of industrial cleaner and the faint mustiness emanating from the historical documents. "This statue," Maya said, carefully turning the bronze soldier. "It's from the Civil War era?" Dr. Blackwood hesitated almost imperceptibly. "Yes, crafted circa 1863. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for her reading glasses. "You have quite a careful touch. Have you handled antiquities before?" "I studied archaeology for 2 years at UGA before." Maya trailed off, uncomfortable sharing personal details during an official inspection. Before life intervened, Dr. Blackwood finished knowingly. "What a waste of potential." Maya bristled. "My job is important, Dr. Blackwood." "Of course it is, dear. But is it your passion?" Before Maya could respond, Daniels returned with customs officials in tow. "Everything checks out," he announced grudgingly. "The professor has the proper credentials, just not the correct paperwork for international transport." "Which I can complete now?" Dr. Blackwood asked, reaching for her fountain pen. "The items will need to remain in custody until proper protocols are followed," explained a stern-faced customs agent. "At least 72 hours. Dr. Blackwood's composed facade cracked. "But my flight can be rescheduled," the agent finished unsympathetically. As the officials continued discussing procedures, Dr. Blackwood turned to Maya. "I'm staying at the Marriott downtown. Perhaps you would consider helping me properly document these items? Someone with your background might appreciate their significance." She slipped a business card into Maya's hand. "I could compensate you for your time, of course." Maya should have returned the card, citing protocol against fraternizing with detainees. Instead, she pocketed it, feeling its weight like a secret pebble. That evening, Maya sat in her modest Decatur apartment, staring at the card. Outside, Atlanta traffic hummed beneath gathering storm clouds. She thought about her mother's disapproving voice. "Security is steady work, Mija. Don't go chasing fairy tales again." Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniels. "Parker from WSB, asking questions about today's incident." "Say nothing." Maya's fingers hovered over Dr. Blackwood's number. One choice led back to her comfortable routine. The other led somewhere unknown. Rain began to patter against her window as she pressed call. The Marriott lobby gleamed with polished marble and soft lighting, making Maya acutely aware of her faded jeans and practical boots. Dr. Blackwood sat in a corner armchair, a cup of tea steaming beside leather-bound notebooks. She wore reading glasses perched on her nose, looking every bit the distinguished academic. "You came," Dr. Blackwood said, not looking up from her notes. "I wasn't certain you would." Maya shifted her weight uncomfortably. "I'm not sure why I did." "Yes, you are." Dr. Blackwood finally raised her eyes, piercing and knowing. "The same reason that beautiful shepherd dog couldn't ignore my suitcase. Some instincts can't be silenced." The professor gestured to the chair opposite her. On the table between them lay photographs of the artifacts, professionally shot against black backgrounds. "I didn't bring the actual items, obviously," Dr. Blackwood explained. "But these should suffice for our documentation purposes." Maya sat cautiously. "I should make it clear that I'm here unofficially. I can't influence the customs process." "Of course not. I would never ask such a thing." Dr. Blackwood smiled thinly. "Now, shall we begin?" For the next 2 hours, they worked methodically through the photographs. Dr. Blackwood dictated detailed provenances while Maya recorded them, occasionally asking clarifying questions that seemed to please the professor. "You have a sharp eye," Dr. Blackwood commented after Maya questioned the unusual alloy composition of a brooch. "Tell me, what derailed your studies?" Maya stiffened. "My father got sick. Cancer. Someone needed to work. And it fell to you." Dr. Blackwood nodded. "Family obligations can be consuming." "It was my choice," Maya said defensively. "Was it?" The professor's question hung in the air, unanswered. As they neared the end of the catalog, Dr. Blackwood pulled out a folder containing yellowed letters and protective sleeves. "These might interest you particularly. Correspondence between Confederate General Thomas Havard and and his quartermaster regarding valuables buried outside Savannah as Sherman approached. Maya leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. The handwritten letters described landmarks she recognized: Forsyth Park with its famous fountain, the Telfair Academy building. "Has anyone investigated these claims?" she asked. "Not thoroughly. My research partner passed away last year before we could pursue it." Dr. Blackwood's hands trembled slightly as she returned the letters to their folder. "Tom is not on my side either." Maya looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Dr. Blackwood sighed, suddenly appearing every one of her 70-plus years. "Early-stage dementia. The specialists give me perhaps a year before my research capabilities become compromised." "I'm sorry," Maya said quietly. "I don't want pity," Dr. Blackwood retorted. "I want completion. These artifacts, this research, it's my legacy." The exhibition in Paris would have secured funding for the final phase. Her voice hardened. "And now I'm trapped in Atlanta while bureaucrats shuffle papers." A hotel phone rang at the concierge desk, breaking the tension. Maya glanced at her watch and stood abruptly. "I should go. My shift starts in 2 hours." "Consider something, Ms. Rodriguez," Dr. Blackwood said, using Maya's surname for the first time. "The security position will always be there. This opportunity won't." Before Maya could respond, the lobby doors swung open and Jackson Parker from WSB strolled in, spotting them immediately. His expression registered recognition, then triumph. Well, he said, approaching their table. "If it isn't the mysterious professor and the TSA agent having an official meeting?" "This is a private conversation," Maya said firmly. Parker smiled, pulling up a chair uninvited. "I've been doing some digging about your artifacts, Professor. Quite a story there. Civil War treasures, colonial relics. It would make a fascinating documentary, don't you think?" Dr. Blackwood's face remained impassive. "Most historical research seems fascinating to laypeople, Mr. Parker. The reality is mostly dusty archives and tedious carbon dating. And yet here you are, attempting to transport priceless American artifacts out of the country." Parker turned to Maya. "Does TSA typically allow its agents to consult privately with detainees?" Maya felt her career teetering on the edge of a precipice. "I'm here as a private citizen with a background in archaeology," she stated, hoping her voice conveyed more confidence than she felt. "Even better," Parker exclaimed. "The dedicated TSA agent with hidden expertise, helping to unravel a historical mystery." The viewers would eat it up. Maya stood, gathering her notes. "This conversation is over, Mr. Parker." As she walked away, she heard Dr. Blackwood say smoothly, "Perhaps we should talk, Mr. Parker. I believe we might have mutual interests after all." Maya's apartment phone rang at 5:17 a.m. She fumbled for it in the darkness, heart pounding with the particular dread that comes from middle-of-the-night calls. "Hello." Her voice was thick with interrupted sleep. "They're releasing my artifacts today." Dr. Blackwood sounded fully awake, energized. "I need you to meet me at the airport storage facility at noon." "I'm working checkpoint duty until 4, Maya protested, rubbing her eyes. "Colin's sick," Dr. Blackwood said simply. Then, after a pause, "Please, Maya. I've convinced Jackson to hold off on his story until he gets an exclusive look at the entire collection. If we manage this correctly, it could benefit everyone involved." "Including me? How exactly?" Maya sat up, fully awake now. "Come at noon and find out." The line went dead, leaving Maya staring at her phone in the dim morning light that filtered through her cheap blinds. On her nightstand sat a framed photograph of her father, his face gaunt but smiling, taken 6 months before he died. Next to it was her acceptance letter to the archaeology graduate program she never attended. By 11:45, Maya was walking through the employee entrance of Hartsfield-Jackson, having called in sick for the first time in 3 years. Her supervisor had sounded skeptical but couldn't argue with her perfect attendance record. Dr. Blackwood waited outside the secure storage area, engaged in animated conversation with a customs official. Beside her stood Jackson Parker, his camera operator setting up equipment nearby. "Oh, Maya." Dr. Blackwood waved her over. Perfect timing. The customs official, a balding man with perpetually furrowed brows, glanced at Maya with suspicion. "You're not on shift today, Rodriguez." "She's here at my request," Dr. Blackwood intervened smoothly. "As a consultant with archaeological expertise. I've already cleared it with your supervisor." Maya doubted this was true, but remained silent as they were escorted inside. The storage room was climate-controlled, stark, and institutional. Dr. Blackwood's suitcase sat on a metal table, surrounded by carefully arranged artifacts, each in individual protective cases. "Beautiful, aren't they?" Dr. Blackwood murmured, gently touching the bronze statue, each one with its own story to tell. Jackson gestured to his cameraman. "Can we get some B-roll of the items before the interview?" As the camera rolled, Maya found herself drawn to a set of documents she hadn't seen during their hotel meeting. Fragile papers with maps of coastal Georgia, annotated in faded ink. One notation caught her eye: Forsyth Cache beneath Mercer Oak, referencing a landmark she recognized from her childhood visits to Savannah. Fascinating, isn't it? Dr. Blackwood had appeared silently at her side. Those documents suggest a significant Confederate treasury was hidden in Savannah and never recovered. If that were true, wouldn't it have been found by now? Maya asked. Dr. Blackwood smiled enigmatically. Not necessarily. The Mercer Oak reference there was cut down in 1862. Modern searchers would have no reference point. But you do. I have theories. Dr. Blackwood held Maya's gaze. And now, thanks to this media attention, I might have the resources to prove them. She nodded toward Jackson, who was reviewing footage. He's proposing a documentary series. Following the research, the expedition, the discovery, if there is one. Maya noticed something odd about one of the documents, a watermark that seemed too crisp for a Civil War-era paper. Before she could examine it more closely, Dr. Blackwood continued speaking. "I need an assistant, Maya. Someone with formal training, but not too many preconceived notions. Someone young enough for field work, but educated enough to understand the historical context." Her voice softened. "Someone passionate." "You barely know me," Maya protested. "I know enough," Dr. Blackwood countered. "You handled those artifacts with reverence. Your questions were insightful. And quite frankly, you look at these items the way I did 40 years ago, like they're windows to another world." Jackson approached with his microphone ready. "Dr. Blackwood, we're set for the interview. Will your assistant be joining us on camera?" Maya tensed. "I haven't agreed to anything." "Haven't you?" Dr. Blackwood raised an eyebrow. "You called in sick to be here. That choice speaks volumes." The customs official interrupted. "You have 30 more minutes. Then these items need to be properly packaged for transport." Dr. Blackwood turned to Maya, her expression suddenly vulnerable. "I'm scheduled to fly out tomorrow morning. These artifacts will be displayed at the Petit Palais for 3 months. Then I return to continue the Savannah research." She reached for Maya's hand. "I leave from Terminal E at 10:40 a.m. If you're there, wonderful. If not, I wish you well with your security career." The implied dismissal stung more than Maya expected. Something about the artifacts nagged at her. Inconsistencies she couldn't quite place. Yet the pull of legitimate archaeological work, of discovery, of purpose beyond scanning luggage and confiscating oversized shampoo bottles. "Ms. Rodriguez," Jackson called. "Care to share how it feels to be part of such a significant historical discovery?" The camera turned toward her, red light blinking, waiting for her response. "I'm not making any statements on camera," Maya said firmly, stepping out of frame. Jackson's smile faltered but quickly recovered as Dr. Blackwood smoothly filled the void, discussing the artifact's historical significance with practiced eloquence. In the following hours, as customs officials processed the necessary paperwork, Maya observed the interaction between Dr. Blackwood and Jackson. The professor was masterful, revealing just enough to keep the reporter intrigued while withholding the most tantalizing details. By late afternoon, Jackson was practically salivating at the prospect of exclusive access to what he now called the Savannah expedition. "Think about it," he told Dr. Blackwood as they stood in the airport parking lot. The Georgia heat shimmered off the asphalt, making the air waver. "This could be the historical find of the decade. WSB would provide full coverage, expenses paid. All we ask is exclusive rights to the footage. And creative control remains with me," Dr. Blackwood insisted. "Within reason," Jackson countered. "Our producers will have final say on the broadcast edit." Maya lingered nearby, close enough to overhear, but maintaining a cautious distance. Her phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor. "Meeting tomorrow 8 a.m. to discuss your sudden illness. Bring doctor's note." Her stomach clenched. One impulsive decision could cost her the job security she'd sacrificed so much to maintain. As Jackson departed with promises of contracts to review, Dr. Blackwood approached Maya. "Walk with me," she said, not a request but a command. They strolled toward the international terminal, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the walkway. "You have questions," Dr. Blackwood stated. "Ask them now." Maya took a deep breath. "Some of those artifacts, they don't seem consistent with their supposed time periods. The watermarks on the Savannah documents, the metallurgic composition of that brooch, very observant," Dr. Blackwood interrupted. "Most people wouldn't notice those details. Are they authentic?" Maya pressed. Dr. Blackwood stopped walking, turning to face her directly. "What is authenticity, Maya? Is it the material object itself, or the story it preserves? The truth it represents?" "That's not an answer. History isn't about objects," Dr. Blackwood continued, ignoring Maya's frustration. "It's about narratives. Who tells them? Who preserves them? Who gets to decide what matters?" She resumed walking. "My exhibition isn't just a collection of trinkets. It's a preservation of Southern stories that have been systematically erased or romanticized or commodified. But if some items are replicas, I never used that word," Dr. Blackwood said sharply. They had reached the departures level of the international terminal. Dr. Blackwood checked her watch. "I have a dinner meeting with potential investors. Consider this, Maya. History belongs to those who document it. Right now, you have an opportunity to be more than an observer, to be a participant." She pressed a thick manila envelope into Maya's hands. "Research notes, contact information, and a contract for a 6-month position as my research assistant. Salary is modest, but includes accommodations in Savannah and Paris. Review it tonight." Her penetrating gaze held Maya's. "Terminal E, 10:40 a.m. I don't believe in prolonged goodbyes." With that, she was gone, leaving Maya holding the envelope and feeling as though she'd been swept up in a hurricane. That evening, Maya sat at her small kitchen table, contract and research notes spread before her. The position offered exactly double her TSA salary, plus expenses. The research itself was fascinating, connecting historical artifacts to specific landmarks throughout Savannah, with a focus on sites related to both the Revolutionary and Civil Wars. Her mother's voice filled the kitchen as she answered Maya's call. "Mija, how was work today?" "Fine, Mama," Maya lied, staring at the contract. "Listen, I might have an opportunity. Something related to archaeology." A weighted silence followed. "Maya," her mother finally said, her accent thickening with emotion, "we've been through this. Your father and I didn't come to this country for you to chase fantasies. Security work is reliable. Government benefits. Pension. It's just for 6 months," Maya argued. "And it pays better. At what cost? Remember how devastated you were when you had to leave school, when all those student loans came due with nothing to show for them?" Her mother's voice softened. "I don't want to see you hurt again." Maya's gaze fell on a photograph tucked among Dr. Blackwood's notes, a black and white image of Forsyth Park from the early 1900s. Something about the landmark stirred a memory from her childhood. Her grandmother, born and raised in Savannah, telling stories on hot summer nights about treasures hidden during the war, about family heirlooms buried to keep them from Sherman's troops. "I need to do this, Mama," Maya said quietly. "I can't explain why, but I do." Later that night, she called her supervisor and left a voicemail. "I apologize for the short notice, but I'm taking a leave of absence. I'll drop off my badge tomorrow." Setting her phone to airplane mode to avoid the inevitable callback, Maya began packing a suitcase. She pulled her old archaeology textbooks from the bottom shelf, blowing off the dust. Their familiar weight in her hands felt like greeting old friends. By dawn, she had made her decision. Terminal E, 10:40 a.m. A new beginning, or perhaps a reckoning with the past she'd tried to leave behind. The bustling Terminal E hummed with pre-flight activity. Passengers rushed to gates, dragging rolling suitcases across polished floors, while announcements echoed overhead. Maya stood at the security checkpoint, her TSA uniform replaced by jeans and a light cotton blouse. For the first time in years, she waited in the regular line, passport in hand. Her phone had exploded with messages, 3 from her supervisor, ranging from concerned to furious, 5 from her mother, escalating from confusion to emotional blackmail, and 1 from Richard Daniels that simply read, Parker is running a story about TSA agent abandons post to chase treasure. Damage control needed ASAP. Maya silenced her phone as she approached the checkpoint. The irony wasn't lost on her, being processed by colleagues who, just yesterday, had been under her supervision. Officer Thompson was working the ID verification station, his eyebrows rising in surprise as she approached. "Rodriguez? What are you?" "Personal trip," she said briskly, handing over her documents. Thompson's eyes flicked to her carry-on bag. "You know Daniels is on the warpath, right? Said you went AWOL." "I left a voicemail requesting leave," Maya replied, conscious of the line forming behind her. "Yeah, well." Thompson handed back her passport. "Rex misses you already. Safe travels, I guess." Beyond security, Maya scanned the terminal for Dr. Blackwood. She spotted the professor at a cafe near gate E14, engrossed in conversation with a young man whose expensive camera equipment marked him as a professional photographer. As Maya approached, she overheard snippets of their discussion. "Need establishing shots of the Telfair first, then the Oak locations," Dr. Blackwood was saying, her elegant hands sketching invisible maps on the tabletop. "Eleanor," the photographer argued, "without permits, we can't film inside most of these locations. Details, Marcus. Jackson will handle the bureaucracy." She glanced up, spotting Maya. Our final team member has arrived." The young man, Marcus, turned, assessing Maya with obvious skepticism. "This is your archaeological expert. She looks like she should be checking backpacks at Six Flags." Maya bristled. "I have 2 years of formal training at UGA under Dr. Hawthorne." "Edmund Hawthorne?" Marcus looked impressed despite himself. "He never takes more than 3 graduate students per year." "I was one of them," Maya confirmed, omitting that she'd never completed the program. Dr. Blackwood interjected smoothly. "Maya's practical security experience will be invaluable once we're in the field. Now, shall we board? We have a brief layover in Paris before continuing our journey." Maya froze. "Continuing?" The contract mentioned Paris and Savannah. "Did I not mention?" Dr. Blackwood's innocent tone didn't reach her calculating eyes. "The exhibition is merely the public face of our project. The real work begins in Marseille, where several private collectors have agreed to let us examine their southern artifacts." "That wasn't in the agreement," Maya protested. "Plans evolve, dear. That's the nature of research." Dr. Blackwood handed her boarding pass to a waiting flight attendant. "Coming." The moment stretched between them, an invisible tug of war. Maya thought of her apartment with 1 month's rent remaining in her account, her abandoned career, her mother's disappointment. Then she thought of returning to the checkpoint, scanning bags for prohibited items day after day, watching other people embark on journeys while she remained static. Final boarding call for Flight 84 to Paris. The announcement cut through her indecision. "I don't appreciate being manipulated," Maya said quietly, taking her place in the boarding line. Dr. Blackwood smiled thinly. "Life manipulates us all, my dear. Some of us simply choose to steer into the current rather than exhausting ourselves fighting it." The flight to Paris passed in a blur of documents and discussion. Dr. Blackwood shared detailed research about the Savannah sites they would investigate upon their return to America, while Marcus photographed the artifacts now securely packed in specialized containers. Maya found herself drawn to the historical maps, noticing discrepancies between landmark placements in different eras. "The Mercer Oak location keeps shifting," she noted, comparing documents from 1859 and 1862. "Civil War mapmakers weren't known for their precision," Dr. Blackwood replied dismissively. "These aren't field maps, though. They're city planning documents, professionally surveyed." Maya traced the inconsistency with her finger. "It's almost as if..." "As if what?" Dr. Blackwood prompted when Maya trailed off. "As if someone deliberately provided conflicting information." Maya looked up from the documents. "Or as if one set isn't authentic." Dr. Blackwood's expression remained neutral, but Maya noticed Marcus shifting uncomfortably in his seat. "You have a suspicious mind," the professor finally said. "That will serve you well in this field." As the plane began its descent into Charles de Gaulle Airport, Maya excused herself to use the lavatory. Once inside, she quickly pulled out her phone and enabled international roaming, wincing at the probable cost. She sent a text to a number she'd found in her old contacts list, Dr. Edmund Hawthorne, her former professor, working with Eleanor Blackwood on Savannah artifacts. Concerns about authenticity. Any history between you two? Any red flags I should know about? The reply came almost immediately. Where are you? Call me ASAP. Do not share your concerns with Eleanor directly. The seatbelt sign illuminated as Maya stared at the message, her stomach dropping faster than the descending aircraft. Outside the small window, Paris came into view. Beautiful, historic, and suddenly treacherous. The Petit Palais gleamed in the Parisian afternoon sunlight, its Beaux-Arts facade impressive against the blue sky. Inside, in a climate-controlled back room not open to the public, Maya watched as French curators carefully unpacked Dr. Blackwood's artifacts. Their white-gloved hands moved with practiced precision, their murmured French occasionally punctuated by expressions of appreciation. Maya hadn't yet found an opportunity to call Dr. Hawthorne. Between the supervised customs process at Charles de Gaulle and the immediate transfer to the museum, she'd been constantly in either Dr. Blackwood's or Marcus's presence. Her professor's urgent message burned in her mind, increasing her scrutiny of both the artifacts and Dr. Blackwood's interactions with the French curatorial staff. Mademoiselle Rodriguez? One of the curators, a severe woman with steel-gray hair twisted into a tight chignon, beckoned her over. Could you explain this discrepancy in the documentation? Maya approached, noting Dr. Blackwood tensing almost imperceptibly across the room. The curator pointed to a silver locket, the same one Maya had first handled at the airport, and then to its accompanying provenance papers. The metallurgical analysis indicates 19th century craftsmanship, the curator said in accented English. But these makers' marks weren't used by New Orleans silversmiths until post-1900. An interesting observation, Dr. Blackwood interjected, materializing beside them with unsettling suddenness. Regional variations in American craftsmanship often confuse European experts. Southern silversmiths frequently borrowed techniques from each other without standardization. The curator didn't appear convinced. Perhaps we should send this piece for more detailed analysis before exhibition. That won't be necessary, Dr. Blackwood said firmly. The exhibition opens in 3 days. There isn't time for additional testing. An uncomfortable silence fell between them, broken only when the museum director entered to announce that lunch had been arranged in the staff dining room. As the group moved toward the exit, Dr. Blackwood gripped Maya's elbow with surprising strength. A word, she murmured, steering Maya toward a corner. Once isolated, her friendly demeanor vanished. I don't appreciate being undermined, especially by my assistant. I didn't say anything, Maya protested. Your expression did. You've been suspiciously examining every item since we arrived. Dr. Blackwood's pale eyes narrowed. Have you contacted someone about your concerns? Maya maintained a neutral expression, though her pulse quickened. I'm just being thorough. Isn't that why you hired me? Dr. Blackwood studied her face for a long moment. We leave for Marseille tomorrow morning. The private collectors are expecting us. Until then, I suggest you remember your contractual obligations, particularly the confidentiality clause. She released Maya's arm and plastered on a charming smile as she joined the others, leaving Maya with the distinct impression of having been threatened. That evening, in the small but elegant hotel near the Champs-Élysées, Maya finally found privacy. The bathroom fan running to mask her conversation, she called Dr. Hawthorne, the international connection crackling slightly. Maya, thank God. His familiar voice, gruff with concern, flooded her with nostalgia for the lecture halls of UGA. Where exactly are you? Paris. The artifacts are being installed at the Petit Palais. We're heading to Marseille tomorrow. Listen carefully. Hawthorne's tone tightened with urgency. Eleanor Blackwood was dismissed from Emory 15 years ago for academic dishonesty. She allegedly authenticated several Revolutionary War documents that later proved to be sophisticated forgeries. Maya sank onto the closed toilet lid. The artifacts she's exhibiting may be partially authentic, partially reproductions. That's her method, mixing enough genuine items to lend credibility to the questionable ones. A heavy sigh filtered through the connection. Eleanor has an agenda that goes beyond academic recognition. She's obsessed with proving her theories about hidden Confederate treasures, particularly in coastal Georgia. But why the elaborate scheme? The international exhibition, legitimacy, and funding. If the Petit Palais validates her collection, private investors will fund her treasure hunting expeditions. Hawthorne paused. There's more. Eleanor has a personal connection to these Savannah sites. Her great-grandfather was a Confederate officer who supposedly buried family wealth before Sherman's arrival. She's been searching for it her entire career. Maya thought of the tremor in Dr. Blackwood's hands, her comments about time running out. She mentioned having early-stage dementia. That, I believe, Hawthorne confirmed. Which makes her more dangerous, not less. She has nothing to lose. A knock at the bathroom door made Maya jump. Marcus's voice called through. Maya, Dr. Blackwood wants everyone in her suite in 15 minutes to discuss tomorrow's agenda. Be right there, she called back, then whispered into the phone. What should I do? Get proof of the forgeries if you can, then distance yourself immediately. Eleanor has powerful allies in the antiquities world, despite her reputation. Hawthorne hesitated. There's a French archaeologist at the Sorbonne, Philippe Bouchard. He helped expose Eleanor's previous forgeries. Contact him if you can. After ending the call, Maya stared at her reflection in the hotel mirror. The woman looking back seemed simultaneously familiar and foreign. The same features she'd always known, now animated by something she hadn't seen in years. Purpose, determination, fear. In Dr. Blackwood's suite, Marcus was setting up camera equipment while the professor arranged documents on an ornate desk. A bottle of expensive cognac sat open beside crystal glasses. Oh, Maya. Dr. Blackwood smiled warmly, all traces of their earlier tension apparently forgotten. Just in time. I was about to share some exciting news. The Marseille collectors have agreed to loan additional items for our Savannah expedition. With these pieces, we'll have enough corroborating evidence to pinpoint the exact location of the Forsyth cache. She poured cognac for everyone, raising her glass in a toast. To history unveiled, and the fortunes that await us all. As crystal clinked against crystal, Maya noticed something she'd missed before, a small photograph partially visible beneath the maps. It showed a much younger Dr. Blackwood standing beside an oak tree, her arm around an elderly black woman wearing a head wrap traditional to the Gullah Geechee people of coastal Georgia. Something about the image tugged at Maya's memory, a fragment of her grandmother's stories about women who preserved history when museums wouldn't. Before she could examine it more closely, Dr. Blackwood smoothly gathered the documents, including the photograph, and locked them in her briefcase. Tomorrow begins the real adventure, she announced, her gaze lingering on Maya with unsettling intensity. I trust we're all fully committed to our shared success. The question hung in the air like smoke, not a query but a test of loyalty. Marseille harbored secrets in its ancient streets. Maya felt them pressing around her as their small group navigated the narrow passages of Le Panier district, the city's oldest neighborhood. Marcus walked ahead with Dr. Blackwood, his camera occasionally capturing the weathered stone buildings and colorful shutters. Maya followed a few paces behind, her phone clutched in her hand, Philippe Bouchard's number ready to dial. She had managed to send him a brief message that morning, but his response had been cryptic. Meet alone. Trust no one in Blackwood's circle. Their destination was a private residence overlooking the Mediterranean, a centuries-old villa owned by Henri Devereux, a reclusive collector of American historical artifacts. As they approached the imposing iron gates, Dr. Blackwood turned to Maya. Mr. Devereux is particularly interested in meeting you, she said, studying Maya's reaction. I mentioned your background and your family connections to Savannah. Maya felt a chill despite the Mediterranean warmth. I never told you about my family, didn't you? Dr. Blackwood's smile didn't reach her eyes. Perhaps it was in your employment application. Regardless, your grandmother's maiden name, Mercer, caught his attention. The gates swung open before Maya could process this revelation. Her grandmother's stories about the Mercer oak suddenly took on new meaning. Not just folklore passed down through generations, but potentially real history, her history. The villa's interior was a museum unto itself, with climate-controlled display cases housing artifacts from various historical periods. Their host, an elegantly dressed man in his 60s with silver hair and calculating eyes, greeted Dr. Blackwood with European double kisses. Eleanor, ma chérie, at last you bring your treasures to me. His accent was French aristocracy, with undertones of something southern. And this must be the Mercer descendant. He took Maya's hand, his grip firm. Your grandmother, Eliza Mercer. She was the daughter of Sarah, yes? Maya's shock must have shown on her face because Devereaux laughed, a sound like dry leaves rustling. History is my business, mademoiselle. The Mercer women of Savannah have always been of particular interest to my family. As they toured his collection, Maya struggled to maintain her composure. Devereaux possessed items that paralleled Dr. Blackwood's: coins, documents, small sculptures, all purportedly from the same Civil War period. But unlike at the Petit Palais, here there were no skeptical curators questioning authenticity. In a secluded alcove, Devereaux revealed his prized possession, a hand-drawn map of Savannah from 1862, with detailed annotations about buried valuables. "This," he said reverently, "is the companion to your Confederate officer's journal, Eleanor." Together, they provide the most complete guide to the Forsyth cache ever assembled. Dr. Blackwood's eyes gleamed as she examined the map. "The final piece. With this, we can begin excavation immediately upon our return." "And the investors?" Devereaux inquired. "Jackson's documentary has attracted significant interest. $3 million in funding, with more promised upon discovery." They spoke as if Maya weren't present, their tones shifting from scholarly to mercenary. Marcus captured everything on camera, occasionally throwing uncomfortable glances in Maya's direction. "And what of the girl?" Devereaux finally asked, nodding toward Maya. "What does she contribute besides her bloodline?" "Legitimacy," Dr. Blackwood replied. "The Mercer connection gives our expedition historical continuity. Plus, her security background will be useful for the actual excavation." "I'm standing right here," Maya interrupted, anger finally overcoming her shock. "And I'd appreciate knowing exactly what connection my family supposedly has to all this." Devereaux exchanged glances with Dr. Blackwood before leading them to a small library. From a locked cabinet, he withdrew a leather-bound album and placed it on an antique desk. "Your great-great-grandmother Sarah Mercer was a house slave owned by General Thomas Haverton, the same officer who buried the Confederate treasury." He opened the album to reveal a sepia photograph of a young black woman standing stiffly beside a seated white man in military uniform. She witnessed the burial location. After emancipation, she and other former slaves created a network dedicated to preserving Southern history, their true history, not the victor's version. Maya stared at the photograph, recognizing her grandmother's features in Sarah's face. If she knew where the treasure was buried, why didn't she recover it herself? "The artifacts weren't merely gold and silver," Dr. Blackwood interjected. "They included documents proving land ownership for dozens of black families, deeds confiscated during the war. Sarah protected this knowledge, passing it through generations of women, waiting for a time when recovering these items wouldn't result in violence against her community." Maya thought of her grandmother's cryptic stories, her insistence that Maya learn about Savannah's landmarks, her disappointment when Maya abandoned archaeology. Had she been trying to prepare Maya for this moment? "The Mercer women became curators of a shadow history," Devereaux continued. "Some worked as seamstresses, domestics, later as teachers, always within reach of the powerful, always watching, always remembering." Maya's gaze fell on a smaller photograph tucked into the album's corner, the same image she'd glimpsed in Dr. Blackwood's suite. The elderly woman beside the younger Dr. Blackwood was unmistakably Maya's grandmother. "You knew her," Maya whispered. "You knew my grandmother." "Eliza was my research partner for 20 years, Dr. Blackwood admitted. "She contacted me after finding my early publications on Confederate document caches. She had the oral history. I had the academic credentials doors would open for. Why didn't you tell me this from the beginning?" Maya demanded. "Would you have believed me? A strange, white woman claiming connection to your family history." Dr. Blackwood's expression softened. "Eliza made me promise to find you if she died before completing our work. The TSA incident was serendipitous. I'd planned to approach you eventually." Maya's world tilted on its axis. The revelation recontextualized everything. Dr. Blackwood's interest in her, the familiar way the professor had spoken about the artifacts, even Maya's own inexplicable draw to the project. The exhibition, the documentary, it's all to fund the recovery of these land deeds. Maya asked. Dr. Blackwood and Devereaux exchanged another look, this one laden with something Maya couldn't interpret. "Among other treasures," Devereaux said smoothly. "History is rarely simple, mademoiselle, and neither are the motives of those who pursue it." As they left the villa hours later, Maya's phone vibrated with a message from Philippe Bouchard. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Café des Antiquaires. Come alone. I have information about what Blackwood and Devereaux really seek in Savannah. The Mediterranean sunset painted the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples as Maya contemplated her grandmother's secrets, Dr. Blackwood's manipulations, and the growing certainty that she was caught in a web far more complex than a simple academic expedition. The Café des Antiquaires was tucked away on a side street near Marseille's old port, its faded awning and weathered exterior suggesting decades of quiet conversations over espresso. Maya arrived 20 minutes early, selecting a corner table with clear views of both the entrance and the street. She'd slipped away from the hotel, claiming a migraine, leaving Dr. Blackwood and Marcus preparing for their afternoon meeting with Devereaux's investors. The previous night had been sleepless, her mind cycling through possibilities. Was her grandmother truly Dr. Blackwood's research partner, or was this an elaborate manipulation? Were the artifacts genuine historical treasures with personal significance to her family, or sophisticated forgeries designed to fund a treasure hunt? At precisely 10 a.m., a man with salt and pepper hair and wire-rimmed glasses entered the cafe. He ordered in fluent French before scanning the room, his gaze settling on Maya. Without waiting for an invitation, he joined her, placing a worn leather briefcase on the chair beside him. Ms. Rodriguez. His English carried a slight French accent. I am Philippe Bouchard. Thank you for contacting me. Dr. Hawthorne said you could help me understand what I've gotten myself into, Maya replied, studying his weathered face. Bouchard sighed, removing his glasses to polish them with a handkerchief. Eleanor Blackwood is brilliant, charismatic, and utterly unscrupulous in pursuit of her obsessions. He replaced his glasses, leaning forward. 15 years ago, she nearly destroyed my career along with her own. I authenticated several documents she'd discovered, papers that later proved to be masterful forgeries. Created by whom? That's the interesting part. Bouchard accepted his coffee from the waiter before continuing. The forgeries were created by a collective of women from Savannah, descendants of formerly enslaved people who had been systematically excluded from academic institutions and museums. Maya felt a jolt of recognition. The women artisans my grandmother mentioned in her stories. Exactly, Bouchard nodded. These women reproduced historical artifacts not for deception, but for preservation. Many original items had been destroyed during the Civil War or appropriated by white collectors. Their reproductions were acts of historical reclamation. So Dr. Blackwood's artifacts are forgeries, but with cultural significance. Maya struggled to reconcile this with her academic training, which valued authenticity above all. Some are original, some are reproductions, some are. Bouchard hesitated. Inventions that should have existed. The problem isn't the items themselves, but Blackwood's presentation of them as uniformly authentic to secure funding and credibility. For the Savannah excavation, Maya supplied. Bouchard's expression darkened. Eleanor doesn't care about land deeds or historical justice. Whatever she told you about your grandmother's involvement is manipulated to secure your cooperation. He opened his briefcase, extracting a folder. These are copies of Eleanor's correspondence with Devereaux over the past decade. A colleague at the Petit Palais obtained them when vetting the exhibition. Maya flipped through the pages, her stomach sinking as she read. The letters detailed an obsessive search not for historical documents, but for gold, specifically, a rumored shipment of Confederate gold that had vanished en route to Savannah in 1863. According to legend, Bouchard explained, this gold was melted down and recast as ordinary objects, candlesticks, picture frames, even children's toys, to avoid detection by Union forces. General Haverton was supposedly responsible for hiding these items throughout Savannah. Maya thought of the bronze soldier statue, wondering if it contained more than historical value. And my grandmother's connection? Eliza Mercer was indeed Eleanor's research partner, but their relationship fractured years ago. Bouchard slid another document across the table, a notarized letter in her grandmother's distinctive handwriting. Should anything happen to me, the letter began, I, Eliza Mercer, declare that all research materials shared with Dr. Eleanor Blackwood remain my intellectual property. The location information for the Forsyth sites must be verified by a qualified descendant of the original witnesses before any excavation occurs. Tears blurred Maya's vision as she recognized her grandmother's attempt to protect her legacy and perhaps to draw Maya back to her cultural heritage. "Eleanor needs you," Bouchard said softly, "not just for your security expertise or archaeological background, but because you are literally the key." According to Gullah Geechee tradition, only a blood descendant can authorize the recovery of items hidden by their ancestors. That's why the German shepherd reacted to her suitcase, Maya realized. Something of my grandmother's was inside. Something with my family's scent. Bouchard nodded. Eleanor is nothing if not methodical. She likely planted an item belonging to your grandmother to guarantee security would open her luggage, creating the accidental discovery that would bring you into her orbit. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Where are you?" Dr. B asking questions. "Investors arriving early." Bouchard noticed her expression. "You're in danger, Ms. Rodriguez. Once Eleanor reaches Savannah, once she has used you to locate the gold, your usefulness ends." "What about her illness?" "The dementia? Real enough, which makes her more desperate." Bouchard gathered his documents. "You have 3 choices. Walk away completely. Alert authorities about the questionable authenticity of the Petit Palais exhibits, effectively ending the expedition, or continue with Eleanor, knowing her true motives, and find a way to honor your grandmother's wishes." Outside the cafe, the Mediterranean sparkled in the distance, indifferent to human schemes and betrayals. Maya thought of her abandoned TSA position, her mother's disappointment, the security and stability she'd sacrificed. Then she thought of her grandmother's stories, the mystery of her family's connection to hidden history, and the artifacts that, authentic or not, represented a heritage systematically erased from official records. "There's a 4th option," she said finally. "I stay with the expedition, but I control how it unfolds." Bouchard raised an eyebrow. "A dangerous game, Ms. Rodriguez." "My grandmother played it for decades," Maya replied, a plan beginning to crystallize in her mind. "And she prepared me for this moment, even if I didn't realize it." As she left the cafe, Maya placed a call to Jackson Parker, the documentary producer. "Jackson, it's Maya Rodriguez. I think you're only getting half the story for your documentary. How interested would you be in the complete narrative, including the role of Black women in preserving Southern history when museums wouldn't?" By evening, as their group boarded the flight that would eventually return them to American soil, Maya had secured her own platform within the documentary, established direct contact with the investors, and subtly positioned herself as the essential link to the Savannah sites. Dr. Blackwood, noticing the shift in dynamics but unable to identify its source, watched Maya with increasing wariness. "You seem different since your migraine," she observed as they settled into their first-class seats. More assured. "I had an enlightening day," Maya replied, meeting the professor's gaze steadily. "I believe I finally understand my role in this expedition." "Do you?" Dr. Blackwood's tone was light, but her eyes had hardened to chips of ice. "Yes," Maya said, thinking of her grandmother's letter, the hidden gold, and the true historical treasures waiting to be reclaimed. "I believe I understand everything now." 6 weeks later, Maya stood beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient live oak in Savannah's historic district, the Georgia humidity enveloping her like a warm blanket. The excavation site around her buzzed with controlled activity, archaeology students from Savannah State University carefully removing soil layers, documentary crew members capturing every moment, local historians consulting worn maps and ground-penetrating radar readouts. "We're definitely onto something," Marcus said, reviewing footage on his camera. "That metal detector went crazy over by the Fountain Foundation." Maya nodded, watching Dr. Blackwood direct a team near the spot Marcus indicated. The professor moved with the energy of someone half her age, though Maya had noticed increasing instances of confusion and repetition in recent days, the dementia advancing, perhaps accelerated by stress and anticipation. The 6 weeks since their return from France had transformed their expedition from a secretive treasure hunt into something more complex. Maya had leveraged Jackson's media connections to involve local universities, historical societies, and most importantly, the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Commission. Dr. Blackwood had initially resisted this expansion, but the investors, intrigued by the enhanced publicity and legitimacy, had sided with Maya. "Maya," Dr. Blackwood called, waving emphatically. Come quickly. Maya crossed the excavation site, careful not to disturb the grid sections. Around her, Savannah's beauty provided a serene backdrop to their work. Spanish moss draped from trees, historic homes with their ornate ironwork standing sentinel along the streets, the distant sound of tourist carriages clip-clopping through squares that had remained essentially unchanged for 2 centuries. In a freshly excavated pit approximately 3 feet deep, a student volunteer had uncovered something solid. As Maya knelt beside Dr. Blackwood, she saw it. A corner of metal protruding from the red Georgia clay. Cast iron, Dr. Blackwood murmured, her eyes feverish with excitement. Possibly a strongbox. The excavation team worked methodically to free the object without damaging it or any contents. As the afternoon sun began its descent, casting long shadows across Forsyth Park, they successfully extracted a small iron chest approximately 18 inches square, its surface corroded but intact. Get Jackson, Dr. Blackwood ordered Marcus, and contact Devereaux in France. Tell him we found it. Maya noticed the professor hadn't mentioned contacting the community partners or university archaeologists who had contributed to the discovery. Some things hadn't changed, despite Maya's efforts to reshape the expedition. The chest was transported to a secure location, a climate-controlled room at the Savannah Historical Society that had been prepared specifically for their findings. As the team assembled around a large examination table, Maya felt a strange sense of completion, as if her grandmother's spirit hovered nearby, witnessing the culmination of decades of preservation, storytelling, and waiting. Before we open it, Maya announced to the assembled group, which included Jackson, key investors, and representatives from local historical organizations, "I'd like to acknowledge that whatever we find belongs not to individuals, but to history, specifically to the complex, intertwined histories of all Savannah's people." Dr. Blackwood shot her an irritated glance. Yes, very poetic. Now, shall we proceed? Conservation specialists carefully worked to open the chest without damaging its contents. When the lid finally creaked open, revealing its contents, a collective gasp filled the room. Inside lay several cloth-wrapped bundles. The conservators gently removed and unwrapped each one, revealing a remarkable collection. Small gold figurines cast in the shapes of everyday objects, just as the legend had described. Several leather pouches containing gold coins bearing Confederate stamps, and most significantly, a stack of documents protected in oilskin. The Haverden gold, Dr. Blackwood breathed, reaching for one of the figurines, a small horse no bigger than her palm. And the deeds, Maya added, directing attention to the documents being carefully separated by conservators wearing gloves. As the papers were examined, their significance became clear. They contained property records for dozens of black families, carefully preserved despite the chaos of war, deeds to lands that had been systematically stolen during Reconstruction, evidence of ownership that had been deliberately erased from official records. These are extraordinarily significant historical documents, declared Dr. Josephine Williams, a historian from Savannah State. They provide legal evidence of black land ownership that was lost through violence and institutional racism. Dr. Blackwood barely glanced at the papers, her attention fixed on the gold figurines. "The metallurgical analysis will be fascinating," she said, though Maya noticed her interest seemed less academic than covetous. Later that evening, as the artifacts were being cataloged and secured, Maya found Dr. Blackwood alone in the conservation room, surreptitiously photographing the gold pieces. "The investors will want detailed images," the professor explained hastily when Maya cleared her throat. "The gold isn't leaving this facility until proper documentation and provenance are established," Maya reminded her. "That was our agreement with the Historical Society." Dr. Blackwood's expression hardened. "You've been deliberately undermining me from the moment we returned from France. This was my discovery, my life's work. It was my grandmother's life's work," Maya corrected quietly. "And those of countless women who preserved this history when institutions wouldn't." The professor laughed bitterly. "Your grandmother understood the value of what we sought. She wouldn't have surrounded our discovery with bureaucrats and academics who'll tie up these artifacts in studies and museums for decades." "That's exactly what she would have wanted," Maya countered. "She didn't care about the gold, Eleanor. She cared about the truth, about reclaiming the erased history of her community." Something shifted in Dr. Blackwood's eyes, a momentary confusion followed by a calculating gleam. We could still proceed as planned, you and I. The documentary has brought attention, yes, but the real value is in the gold. Properly sold to private collectors. That's not going to happen. Maya held up her phone, revealing that she'd been recording their conversation. The artifacts are staying right here in Savannah, where they'll be properly studied, exhibited, and used to educate future generations. Dr. Blackwood's face contorted with fury. You ungrateful, Dr. Blackwood. Jackson's voice interrupted from the doorway. We're ready for your on-camera statement about the discovery. The professor composed herself with visible effort, smoothing her hair and adopting a dignified expression. Of course, the culmination of my life's research deserves proper documentation. As Dr. Blackwood followed Jackson out, Maya remained in the room, running her fingers lightly over the documents that proved what her grandmother had always known, that their family's history, their community's rightful place, had been systematically buried, both literally and figuratively. 2 days later, Dr. Blackwood disappeared from her hotel, taking with her several small gold artifacts that had not yet been cataloged. International authorities were alerted, but Maya suspected the professor had assistance from Devereaux in France, a prepared escape route for this very contingency. Strangely, Maya felt neither anger nor betrayal, only a quiet certainty that justice would eventually find its way. The most important discoveries, the land deeds and historical records, remain secure, their significance already generating legal discussions about reparations and historical reconciliation. 3 months after the discovery, Maya stood at a podium in the Savannah Historical Society's main exhibition hall, preparing to open a permanent installation titled Reclaimed: The Hidden Histories of Savannah. Behind her, display cases contained the recovered artifacts, alongside reproductions created by the women artisans of her grandmother's generation, each labeled with equal prominence, acknowledging both their physical authenticity and their cultural significance. As she surveyed the crowded room, community elders, academics, descendants of the families named in the recovered deeds, and her own mother, who had finally come to understand her daughter's choices, Maya felt a profound sense of homecoming. Her TSA badge was now tucked away in a drawer, replaced by credentials identifying her as the Historical Society's Director of Community Heritage. In the back of the exhibition hall stood a life-sized bronze statue of a German shepherd, commemorating how a trained dog's keen senses had set in motion a chain of events that recovered not just gold and artifacts, but something far more precious: truth long buried, stories long silenced, and a young woman's sense of purpose and belonging. Today, Maya began her speech. We celebrate not just what was found beneath Savannah's soil, but what has always been here, waiting to be acknowledged. History isn't just what's written in official records. Sometimes it's passed down through generations of storytellers, preserved by those who were never meant to have a voice. Today, those voices speak clearly, and we are all richer for hearing them. Outside, Savannah continued its timeless rhythm, tourists strolling through historic squares, moss swaying gently in the breeze, the Savannah River flowing steadily toward the Atlantic. And beneath it all, countless other stories waited to be discovered, their treasures not always gold or silver, but truth, the most precious artifact of all. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and if you've watched this far, comment, "I watched all the way through," and share your opinion about this story. Oh, and don't forget to watch the next video that appears on the end screen. It's very exciting.